Hey, welcome everybody. Woo. How you doing, Paul? So I want to thank you everybody for coming today for our elections town hall meeting. And I'm Steve Dunkel, your county auditor, and it's great to see everybody here today. And for those of you who are dialed in through Mason Web TV, I want to welcome you as well. I really appreciate you guys being here. I often remind people that the people are the source of political power in our country. So how you vote is how you express your political power in our system. And I think it's really important that everybody understands how all that works. And that's what really the purpose of this town hall is today, is to give you an overview of how your election system works. And we've got two really important elections coming up, the August primary, August 6th, and then right on the heels of that will be the November general election, the presidential election. So how you guys vote will affect things locally and things nationally. So it's important that everybody understands how to best to participate in that process. I want to apologize for the weak projection lighting. Hopefully you guys can follow along today, but if you want, you'll be able to find a copy of the slides. We'll post a copy out on the elections website. And if anybody wants to have a copy mailed to them, just let me know. We'll get you a copy. So we've got a pretty full agenda today. We're basically going to give you a high-level overview of your election system. We've got some special speakers today from K&H Printing, who's the supplier for our mail-in vote-by-mail ballots. And we also have Fina Orman here from the Secretary of State's office. And you may remember Fina from when she worked here in the Mason County Auditor's office. So it's good to have Fina back. And we want to allocate a lot of time, or as much time as possible, for questions and answers. So try to save those till the end. And if we don't get to your questions today, you can always call us. And on the screen, we've got the phone number, which we'll give out later, also, and our email address. So we always want to be available to answer your questions. And if nothing else, just come on down and visit, and we'll take you through the whole thing. So first of all, I want to introduce our elections team. Oh, we got a couple more folks coming in. Hey guys. So first we have Marie Stevenson, who's our election administrator, Susan Blankenship, who's her assistant administrator, and back at the home fort is Kaylee Chappell. She's our elections technician. And those three, with some help from some really great part-time help, are the ones who administer your elections seamlessly and smoothly, election after election after election, and they just do a fantastic job, and I truly appreciate it. I know you guys do too. We also have, as I mentioned, where's Dave Haynes and Jennifer from, Jennifer, I'm forgetting your last name here. Thank you. From K&H Printing, and again we have Fina. All right, so quick overview of your election system. Washington State, if you recall, or as you know, went to 100% vote by mail in 2011, and we've been in that mode ever since. Mason County purchases and obtains our vote by mail ballots from K&H Printing. Those ballots, and you'll hear more from K&H, but they're distributed to the voters by U.S. mail, and then they're returned to the elections office either by U.S. mail, prepaid postage, or through the ballot drop boxes. We've got 13 of them distributed around the county, or some people come in and bring them into the vote center in person. And once they're there, once the ballots are brought back to the ballot processing room, we keep them under security control. What's the word? Chain of custody. We have chain of custody in place 100% when the ballots get back to the ballot processing room. Marie, Susie, and team will process them, and you'll hear more about that from Marie here shortly. And then they're tabulated on our clear ballot voting system. And the laws that frame all of this are found in Title 29A of the Washington Revised Code, and also the Washington Administrative Code for the Secretary of State, which is WAC 434. Okay, so now we're going to jump to the topic of voter registration, how you get registered to vote. And so Marie, come on up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so voter registration, the laws and rules that are, set in by statute through the legislature is like RCW 29A08. That's voters and registration. So that's where we get all of our information and how we do things, and the Secretary of State oversees us on all of these things. To register to vote or update your voter registration information can be done online or in person at a vote center. Online is at votewa.gov. If you've never been there, you can look at your registration and see what your address is, where you get your mail, do any updates that you need to do to that to help us make sure you get a ballot at the right place and under the right name, because people change their names and we don't always have that up to date. You can get one by mail. Mail us in a voter registration application form. Must be completed, and once we get it, we will process it. There is upcoming here, starting in July, automatic voter registration, which will be done through state agencies, DOL being the main one, when proof of citizenship is provided. So there will be some more information coming as we get closer to July on that. And then there are deadlines to be effective for current election. So some of those deadlines consist of if you send us a voter registration form or register to vote online through votewa.gov, we have to receive it no later than 8 days prior to election day. If it is after that 8th day, then if you want it to be in the election, you have to come in person. So for your voter registration record to be updated for that election. Anything after the 8th day that's received by mail or online is held until after election day. In person can be done during regular business hours up to 8 p.m. on election day. And you can update your voter registration, get a ballot, register to vote, do any of those things. And then information accuracy, something that is important to help us keep our voter registration records up to date, like your residential address, your mailing address, your name, if it changed, a lot of that information, especially your residential address, is very important because that determines what districts you vote on your ballot. If you live in Commissioner District 2, and your house is there, but your old address is in Commissioner District 1, we're not going to be putting the right information on your ballot. And that, you have to tell us so that we can make sure we have that up to date. You can verify all of that information at votewa.gov prior to election or during an election. And then another way to help us keep voter registration records up to date is when we at the Elections Department send out correspondence, whether it be a ballot or confirmation card or a voter registration information card or some sort of a letter. If it's sent to an address and that person is no longer there, if somebody actually writes on it and returns it to us, that gives us information that voter is no longer there, and then we will, move forward accordingly. Once, with all of our records up to date, it helps us when we're issuing ballots to make sure they're sent to the right address and all of the proper districts are on that ballot. And then something that we encourage you to do, because ballots are mailed out about 4 weeks before Election Day from Mason County. We encourage you to vote early, return it early, and so that your ballot can be counted. That, of course, if you vote early and you forgot to sign it, or your signature, your dog helped you sign it, something comes through and it doesn't match, that gives plenty of time for us to get you the letter that you'll receive to cure your ballot, and then we can get your ballot counted. Some of the things coming up for the August and November election, we are going to be providing some extended hours and locations. So we're doing a temporary vote center in Belfair to help with our North Mason residents and voters. So at the old fire station at 460 Northeast Old Belfair Highway, our vote center is going to be located at the back of the building. We'll have plenty of signage. On August 1st through the 5th, so it's not going to be during the entire election. So August 1st through the 5th, it will be there from 9 to 4. We're going to be also doing a Saturday, August 3rd from 9 to 1. And then on election day, we'll be there from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then the Shelton location, we are, of course, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, election day, 9 to 8, and we're also doing that Saturday, August 3rd, from 9 to 1. The Belfair drop box that used to be at the library is no longer at the library, which we moved it to a better location, lots more room. And it is now at where the location for the new vote center, temporary vote center will be, at the 460 Northeast Old Belfair Highway, right by the front door. So that concludes me. Next. Am I hitting the right button?
So we always want to encourage everybody.
You need this one.
I think this one will work. We want to encourage everybody to get registered. Make sure you encourage your friends and relatives, and as you often hear me say, encourage even the people you don't like to get registered to vote. As far as the statistics go in Mason County, as of this morning, we have 44,474 active registered voters and 44,446 inactive. So the inactive voters aren't receiving ballots. And I will tell you that it takes a lot of work with the information, the checklist that we get from the Secretary of State's office through the ERIC database and United States Postal Service change of address database to really keep our voter rolls updated and current and correct. In addition to that, I personally spend a lot of time looking at the USPS database and try to follow up with people who have moved out of state. And if they are registered in another state, we will then go ahead and get the documentation that supports that and cancel them. And or if a voter has unfortunately turned up as deceased, we'll go ahead and cancel them in that situation as well. But the inactive voters are about 10% of the active, and so it's a metric that I keep a close eye on. I want to try to keep that inactive count as small as possible, and that includes also trying to get inactive voters to reactivate and get them back in voting mode. So it does work both ways. You can see from the age demographics, if you can see the slide. In Mason County, 52.6% of our voting population is over the age of 55. So we're a little bit more of a seasoned population. And you can see also on the far right there the statistics for voter registration, new registrants from year by year starting in 2019. And 2020 was a big spike year. We had 3,840 new registrants. And so far this year we've got 672, but Maria and Susie tell me just hang tight, things are going to get crazy, people will be coming out of the woodwork, and we'll see that number increase. All right, so next up we're going to talk ballot production with Jennifer Lindquist from K&H Printing. And I got to tell you, I've been up to K&H a number of times on tours to observe their production processes, and as you guys, some of you have participated as election observers, you've been part of that tour. They run a really tight operation. And so if you haven't been on that tour, sign up for when we get ready to head back up there for the August primary. So thanks for being here, Jennifer. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Steve. And yes, thank you so much for the invitation. Myself and my colleague, Dave Haynes, are here from K&H, and we are a local Washington print company. We're based in Everett, Washington. We have a 140,000 square foot facility. We have been doing ballot printing since the 30s, if you can imagine that, 1930s. As vote by mail has grown across the country, then our business with vote by mail has grown as well. You see Oregon, Colorado, Utah, California, Nevada, Washington, all the vote by mail states are, their voters are really enjoying getting a ballot in the mail, and we make sure that they get their ballot that is specifically designed for them. We do ballots for jurisdictions as small as we have a county in Colorado, Dolores County. They have 1,700 voters, all the way up to Los Angeles County, California at 5.8 million voters. So we really can tailor our business to whatever is your jurisdiction size is. We'll work with you and to get you the best product for you. We have about 100 full-time employees, and then as the general, we get closer and closer to the general, we will ramp it up to about 300 to 400 temporary employees that we'll bring in that have all been background checked and vetted. So going through the slide here, we have what we call election coordinators, and that's a specific person that is assigned to Mason County that starts working with the county as early as 160 days before the election. So your representative from K&H, who's the main point of contact, her name is Shirley. She's been with the organization for years and years. She works really closely with Marie, and she will send her a ballot plan on this is when we need your ballot faces, this is when we need your ballot extract. They go over the design of the envelope and of the ballot and everything like that. And then the ballots are printed for a specific voter on large rolls of paper, which is followed by cutting and folding. And this right here is the one process that makes K&H unique from other vendors. We print a ballot for a specific voter in mind from the very beginning. So other ballot printers will get an order and say, they want 2,000 for this precinct or 500,000 for this precinct. They print all those ballots, and then they get the voter extract from the county, and then whatever is left over, they shred. The great thing about K&H is we don't ever have any leftover ballots. There is never an extra ballot. We know from the time that it starts in the printing goes through our system that it's going to the correct voter. And we have a reconciliation system that I'll tell you about here in a second that helps us with that. We have a quality assurance team that is continuously checking throughout the entire process. They're checking that the barcodes are readable. They're checking that the ballot is not being folded on those timing marks, that it's going to go through tabulation. We constantly have people that are checking those things for quality assurance. Insertion and inkjetting on the envelopes is an inline automated process, and it's triggered by the barcode on the stub of the ballot or the wrap of the ballot. So K&H imprints a 2D barcode on the stub of the ballot, and that is also on the envelope and any insert or anything you have. So that's how we know this ballot goes to this packet, which goes to this person, and we reconcile that through our entire system with video or with cameras, still shot cameras, and with the technology of the barcodes. An IMB, which is an intelligent mail barcode, is applied to the outbound envelope, facilitating tracking through our proprietary software called MARS, which is Mail Assembly Reconciliation System. And this product, I'm so proud of this product that they invented 10, 15 years ago, Dave. It's been a game changer, really. It's unique to K&H. We worked very closely with the post office. They trust us as a seamless mailer. And so when your ballot hits the mail stream through the Postal Service and it's scanned at that first scan, then we can track it all the way through. Potentially, if you mail your ballot back to the county, we can track it through all of those scans. And Marie and her team have a portal for Mars where if you call and say, hey, where's my ballot? They can check and see when it was printed, when it was mailed, when it was returned, and all of that. So that's a great portal that is very useful to the county. It checks and confirms that every voter is receiving the correct ballot. Mason County can log into that MARS and they can get reports. And K&H, like I said earlier, is a seamless mailer. So mail is sorted and entered directly into processing at USPS. So when it comes off, it's printed in that sort structure. So your ballot is, we know where it's going to be mailed from the very beginning, and so then when we send it to the post office, they don't have to wait to check it in. They know it's good to go because it's from K&H, and they will run it through the system, and it gets to you guys so much quicker. So that's really all I have to say about K&H, and we'll be here for questions if you have any more at the end.
Thank you very much. And as great of an overview as that was, you guys really have to see this operation with your own eyes. It's an amazing process. And Jennifer's right. We really appreciate the fact that when we get a phone call or email from a voter that says, hey, I didn't get my ballot, they've got the tracking statistics step by step of where that ballot is either in the process or when it was delivered to the Postal Service, and almost all the way to the voter's mailbox, right? That's when we lose visibility on the ballot from a chain of custody standpoint, is when it gets to the voter's mailbox, and then we don't see it again until it's brought back to the elections office. So that brings me to the next topic here. If I can get So returning your ballot. So in our vote by mail system, lots of voters send their ballots back through the U.S. mail. When you do that, make sure your ballot is postmarked on or before Election Day, because typically and usually and almost always, if it arrives with a postmark that's after Election Day, it is set aside for the canvassing board to review and set aside as a late ballot and not counted. If you return your ballot through the drop boxes, those close at 8 p.m. sharp on election night. And we've got 13 locations around the county. A lot of people prefer to place their ballots in the drop box if they have questions or concerns about the reliability of U.S. mail. I think both methods work really well. We're able to work with the post office if there's any questions that come up about ballot status with them. And again, you can always bring your ballot in person down to the vote center here in Shelton, or as Marie shared, we've got the new temporary vote center available now in Belfair. But again, it's got to be in our hands before 8 p.m. on election day. For those who are overseas voters, Yoakawa voters, we need to have their elections received by 8 p.m. as well. So while we get ballots out weeks in advance and you have a lot of time to study up on candidates and measures, it's important that you get them back by that deadline. Okay, next we have Marie to talk about ballot processing. Once the ballots are in our hands and the team is ready to go.
Can you hear me? So ballot processing. Ballot processing is a process. There's a lot to it. We're very meticulous on making sure that every step of ballot processing within the laws and rules is followed to a T. Ballots, when we collected, when they're in our presence, they are always in the presence of at least 2 election staff. They're stored and secured, locked in a numbered seal that has to be logged and written and signed by 2 people who put it on and take it off, so that the ballots are ensured that they're always with 2 people. And then when we receive the ballots, each ballot is counted in each step within the process to ensure that all ballots are accounted for. So when they're collected from the ballot drop boxes, 2 staff, of course, There's logs that go for the ballot drop box to open it. There's a steel seal when it's numbered, has to be cut off, and then logged, and by two people, that two people were there, two people took it off, two people pulled the ballots out together, and then they go into a container that also is sealed with number seals that two people put them in there, and they're all accounted for. Then they're transported, of course, in those sealed containers back to the processing center. Once they arrive at the processing center, we have what's called a Tritech sorter. And that machine, what it does is each ballot envelope has that barcode on there that is your ballot ID connected to your voter registration. That is only unique to you. When we put it through the sorter actually reads that barcode and then separates it out. We provide the system, the sorting machine, a beginning list of all of the valid ballot IDs for that election. And as they go through, it pulls out, it reads the barcode and says, this is a valid ballot ID that's on the list. This one's not, it goes over there. And maybe if it can't read it because it got wet or smudged or something, it'll put it into a different spot. And then they're all handled accordingly. Once that's all done, then we are verifying everything. The images of those envelopes, then with that ballot ID connected to it, gets uploaded into our voter registration database. And once it's uploaded into there, it pulls it into groups, and then each group is then reviewed and connected to the voter, your voter registration record, which pulls your signature out of the system. And when those two are side by side, we have the signature capture off of the envelope and the signature in your voter registration, and we're verified with us certified staff. You know, we have to have certain trainings to check signatures. So we have trained staff reviewing all of those signatures one by one, and either accepting them or rejecting them. So if it matches, it's accepted. If for some reason it's rejected, somebody didn't sign, or it doesn't match, or for whatever reason, occasionally we get one where they have had their power of attorney signed for them, which can never be used for voting. So we will, of course, reject that, and we have to send letters. So signaturification is done through that, and then everything's counted and verified, and then all of the rejected ballots that were pulled out because they were unsigned, mismatched, or for whatever other reason we had to not accept that ballot. Those are all hand counted to make sure everything matches, that we have the right numbers, that also match up with the accepted ballots, the rejected ballots, to what originally came in, so nothing is missing, nothing is added throughout the process. And then we send letters to every rejected ballot, whether it's unsigned or mismatched, and we're basically requesting them to help us cure that ballot so that we can count it, because we can't count it without a cure. We do phone calls. We try, the law requires us to do them at least 3 days before we certify the election. In our staff, we do it about 5 days. We want to give more time to get those letters back. So we do it about 5 days before certification election to remind voters that you should have gotten this letter. If you didn't, let me get it to you. You can come to our office, whatever it takes to help them. We email, we do whatever we can to help them. And then once that's all done, the ballots that are accepted, even the accepted ballots, accepted ballots get opened. And the opening starts out with hand counting to verify that they have the proper amount of ballots that our system says were accepted, along with matching it up with the Tritech count on how many ballots went through that were accepted. So there's lots of checks and balances throughout. And then upon opening, each ballot is physically inspected by the election staff at the opening table. And they are reviewing every ballot and every vote for oddities. Oddities could be something where a correction. There's instructions on the ballot. If you make a mistake, you put a line through it and you fill in the one you want. Occasionally we get one where somebody has filled in a bubble and put a line through it. Did not make another selection. our voting system or our tabulation system will pick that up as a vote. And their true intention, because our job is to count every vote the way the voter intended. And by the correction, they made a correction. They filled in the bubble, put a line all the way through it, and did not make another selection. Therefore, they don't want to vote in that race. So we have to handle that ballot carefully to make sure that when it gets into the scanner to be tabulated, that we deselect that vote for that voter. So it does not count it as a vote. So there's lots of pieces to this. So that inspection, ballots could be cut in half, people cut off the barcodes, people do all kinds of stuff, which they're not barcodes, they're called timing marks. And it's just to help the machine know what bubble goes with what selection. So people cut those off, and then we have to do a little extra work to make sure those votes are counted the way the voter intended. And then when those things happen, we do what's called ballot duplication. So duplicating a ballot is a ballot that doesn't scan or can't be read properly because they cut the timing marks off or something. So what we do is we have to, teams of 2 people, make sure the votes are done, duplicated properly, and then another set of 2 people verify that it was done properly. Not the same 2 staff members that did the duplication in the first process. And then after that's all, and the ballots are all scanned, the images are saved, and they cannot be, no tabulation is done. They're just images until we actually trigger the system to actually tabulate the votes. And that cannot happen until 8 p.m. on election day. Observation about processing is encouraged. We encourage anybody who's interested in seeing it and getting a good understanding of how we really do things and seeing it firsthand. We encourage that. Observing the process requires some training. It goes over the entire process. It gives an overview of everything and the rules that have to be followed when observers are in the processing room. So, and our next observer training is going to be on July 11th at 5 p.m. in the Commissioner's Chambers at the 411 North 5th Street. That's what I got. Next.
Thanks,
You're up,
Marie.
Steve.
And we love our observers. We feel as if they're almost family. And we encourage everybody who has any interest at all in observing any aspect of the election, just let us know. And we've been working really hard to make as much of that whole process as observable as possible, and including if you want to follow the team around as they go to the different or from one drop box to the next and collect ballots, you can follow them around and watch that. As I said before, you can come up to K&H Printing and observe that operation. We've got 24/7 live stream video from the ballot processing room. Fascinating video. I know I hear from Bob and Laura Lynn all the time about how interesting it is. And so we're just trying to make everything as observable as possible. As your auditor, I like also to do audits. And so I make sure that we take advantage of everything that we can do under the law to conduct audits on an election. The first one that is required is the logic and accuracy test. That's what we do to make sure the machines are performing properly before we enter into the election. And that's the main purpose of that test, is to ensure that the paper ballot matches the scanned image, and that equates to the tabulated result. And for the August primary, and this is something that Susie suggested to a question that Bob asked a few elections ago. Bob's going to come in and we're going to do the Rogers inaccuracy test as a preliminary check before the formal logic inaccuracy test. And Bob's going to set up that test and make sure that he's confident that for the ballots that get prepared for that activity, the paper ballot matches the scanned image, matches the tabulated result. After the election and before certification, we do random batch audits. And some of you guys have actually participated in those audits. We let observers and citizens actually do the counting of those random batches, select the random batches. Of course, we deputize them so that they're official and their authority to actually touch the ballots, but we will have typically a representative from the Democratic Party and one from the Republican Party, and they pick the batches in the election that we audit in that event, and then they do the hand count. Their hand counts have to match each other's hand count, and both counts have to match what the machine says. And it's a great test. A lot of people gain a lot of confidence from that. The other audit that we do is the risk limiting audit. Anybody ever hear of the risk limiting audit before? You familiar with it? There's a lot of skepticism about risk limiting audits. And so when I became auditor, I really wanted to get my own head and understanding, get my head around what the risk limiting audit was all about, and really develop my own understanding of its utility. And I think it's a good audit. And in that particular event, we make sure that, or we're checking to make sure that the paper ballot that's selected by random through a process through the Secretary of State's office matches the cast vote record. And we've run, well, everyone we've run, we've never had an issue. So in the statistical analysis of it, it's a valid test. The other thing that we've started doing is a hash value test, and that's where Marie will capture a software image of the voting system before the election and compare that to a software image that she captures after the election and before certification as a measure or a verification that nothing has changed in the software for the voting system. So if you want to be a part of those activities, or if you want to come down and observe, just let us know and we'll have you come on down. And if there was more audits we could do, I would do them, but those are the ones we can do by law. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Fina Orman, who's Deputy Director of Elections for the Office of Secretary of State. And Fina, take it away. And if you want to navigate, you just hit this little arrow here or click on that arrow there.
Okay, perfect.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Hello. I'm glad to be back in Mason County, my old stomping grounds. I see a couple familiar faces. So let's see if I can. Here we go. So I'm, again, Fina Ormond. I'm the Deputy Director of Elections at the Secretary of State office. I have over 15 years of election experience, and I got almost all of it here in Mason County. I worked I used to have the position that Marie has now, the election administrator, and I worked all of those years, 2006 through 2021, with both Marie and Susie. So I felt very confident when I went to the state of the hands that I was leaving Mason County elections in. Obviously, it's very close to my heart. And now coming back, looking at all the improvements they've done to both the office for accessibility, the drop boxes, the processing room, the increases in security. I'm incredibly impressed with the changes that they have made and improvements in the short time that I've been gone. So this is the mission of the Secretary of State's office. So this is the part you can all try to fall asleep, so I'll try to make it quick. But our goal at the Secretary of State's office is to maximize confidence and informed participation in the democratic process by ensuring that elections in Washington State are conducted fairly, accurately, and transparently, accessible to all eligible voters and candidates, and reported accurately. So I want to really lift up that part about fairly, fair and transparent. Our goal is not only, we know that the processing of ballots, the registering of voters, all of those pieces are handled at the local level. And then you really have, trust in your local election officials. And our job at the state is really to make sure that a voter in Mason County, Wahkiakum County, Spokane County are all treated fairly and the same. That's really what we do at the state. So a big part of what we do is training and things and the WAC review. So if you see the WACs that Steve brought up, and you'll see we didn't coordinate enough of our slides, so you'll see I'll duplicate some of that, which is good because you know then it's right because we're all saying the same thing. So we work on the wax, which is 434, and that's to make sure, again, that election processes across the state are the same. So I'm going to go through a little bit of and these are just, again, a really high level, not deep and not everything we do to ensure that your vote is safe and secure. And we'll go through what happens before an election, during an election, and after election. So every county gets to choose their own voting system. So that's important, and that helps so that we're not all on the same voting system, and that makes sure also that we don't all have the same, if there is a vulnerability, that we all have different systems, and that's part of the value of having a separate elected official for every county. So they do get to choose their own voting systems, but those systems have to be certified by an independent lab, and they have to be certified also by the Secretary of State. And we do those tests every time there is a change, even just a small change, like, hey, we need a new printer on this, and it needs a new driver installed. We have to go through an entire certification process where the vendor comes to the Secretary of State, demonstrates for us, and then we certify any change. And I did notice when I went to the ballot processing area, the office has the printed most recent certification for a clear ballot to show that the system Mason County uses is certified. Voting systems are on an air-gapped network. They're not connected to the internet, and it can't connect to the internet and is incapable of wireless connection. So that is what keeps it separate and prevents vulnerabilities to the voting system. Another thing that we do is county reviews, and I know, so this is something that started in the 1990s. So as the Secretary of State office, we have a work group called Certification and Training, and they come out to the counties and they do a full review. They come in, they get all the policies and procedures for everything that they do. The canvassing board manual, do you have policies and procedures for duplication? All of those things, they come on the logic and accuracy test, which was mentioned previously. They come the week of the election. They follow the drop box ones to make sure they're doing it right. They come in and look. They say, do they have the right signs posted, based on state law and administrative code? They watch the ballot processing. Is that happening correctly? And watching the signature checking and the opening. And they do a full review of all of those things. And if there is things that are not exactly correct, those are the things that they bring up to make sure that that happens. So we do that on a consistent basis, about a 5-year schedule. Additionally, we do, each county is required to have 2 certified election administrators. So that's another program that's run out of our office. And to get that, it's not a rubber stamp. So you have to take a Election 101 class, which is about a 12 to 15 hour class. You have to do another 40 hours of continuing education in elections, and part of that has to be specific to Washington State. You have to pass a test, which really requires you to be like, so it's like, if you get a ballot like this, and this voter registration, and you have to go and research and make sure that you, as an election administrator, can find the correct RCWs and WACs and cite them to prove that you understand how election law and code work. And then you have to work for 2 years in elections, and then you can get a certification. And then again, that is not just something you get and then you're done. It requires continuing education. So Susie's been a certified election administrator forever, you know, and also Marie is also one. So another part about securing your vote in Washington State is we have paper ballots, and you heard about K&H's facility, and I'll tell you, when I worked here and we went to K&H, and my socks, knocked our socks off in terms of that. So very impressive facility. The security for the facility, I mean, it wasn't even a question about whether we were going to move to K&H, and that the tracking that we were able to gain from that with the ballots was just really it was just such a wonderful thing for our vote by mail. So, and what paper ballots give us, if you go to a state that doesn't have paper ballots, when you go to a voting machine and you just put it in electronic, and if there is something that is wrong or a question, there's no hard copy. And so that's which is excellent about the paper ballots. One, you have an opportunity to review your ballot before you fold it up, put it in the envelope, and sign it. And also, if there's a question, the election officials have a hard audit trail of the ballots as they process through the system, and something at the end that's tamper evident that they can review. So VoteWA, you'll hear Marie mentioned our VoteWA system. And VoteWA is our voter registration, statewide voter registration election management system. And so there was a day, Susie and I, we remember it well, when every county had their own system, and we just connected to the state system. Now we all work within the same system. And part of this has to do with our ability now so if a voter comes into our county or into a county and wants to register to vote, you can see if that the checking that goes into that, it will scan the whole system to see if that voter is already registered in another county. It will see whether that voter has already received a ballot or been issued a ballot. So it also prevents the system prevents a voter from casting a ballot twice, or prevents us from accepting a ballot twice for a voter. It also, because we're on the statewide system, it allows us at the state to really leverage the data that we can to keep our records updated. So, for example, we can ingest information from the Social Security about death records, or persons from the Department of Corrections who are under confinement for a felony. So we ingest those records. The system will look for matches and send it to the county for them to say, oh yes, this is the same person, and then we can go moving to cancel if it's a death record or things like that. So having this all together and having that voter registration and election management system is really cutting edge and helpful. After the election, election administrators go through a full ballot reconciliation. And I will tell you, there is nothing more important than when the ballots start coming in. And if you've been an observer, you know, I always talk to the observers I had and always said, I hope it feels like you're watching paint dry. And that's really, I hope how exciting it is. But, you know, so you'll see in the beginning when things come in, there are lots of tags, things doing it, 2 people, we checked it in, it was this many ballots. Then when it goes to here, this is how many envelopes it was here, and all along the process. And that entire process creates an audit trail for every envelope in the process, as it's signature checked, as it's moved to the table, opened, how it's moved into the tabulation system. And then at the end, every county is required to do a full ballot reconciliation of everything that was received, everything that was counted. what they took to the canvassing board with a recommendation for rejection or a challenge ballot, and then what the canvassing board rejected at the end. What voters got credit. I mean, the list goes on. If you saw the reconciliation sheet of things that they have to do. They have to submit that to us at the Secretary of State, and we compile it into one large reconciliation form for the entire state. And then it is, and ballot reconciliation, this slide is the same thing. And again, the reason why it says continued is because it does, it's a large, complicated, vital part of ballot reconciliation and the vote. So I just want to say I pulled all of this information off our website. We have a website, and I pulled this off the page that said securing your vote. There's actually a lot, and I could have gone on and on and on. And even Steve said when I sent him these slides, he said, "Are you going to just fit in your 10 minutes?" But he didn't know how fast I could talk. He should have asked Susie and Marie. But our website, sos.wa.gov, is filled with information. We have gone, obviously at the state, we take lots of calls and lots of questions, and so we have a very robust website with almost every question you can think of about the system, what system the counties have, what kind of testing we do on the system, voter registration, how we handle everything. You can find a voter registration form in Somalia, Somalian. You can find anything. So I really encourage you to go that, and that will really give you a lot of general information. Votewa.gov, that's one of the websites that Marie mentioned. And again, that's the one where you can find out information for yourself. You can log into your record, you can see your elected officials, you can request a replacement ballot, you can update your information. So that is also an incredibly helpful website. So I'm done. I don't know if I made my 10 minutes or not, but anyway, I'm available for questions. Thank you for inviting me too.
Hey, Fina, that was fantastic. Thank you for being here today. Okay, now comes the fun part. Hope you guys brought all your hard questions, because this is our Q&A session, and now it's on you. Lori Lynn.
I was curious. I was not able to see the Belfair situation when you had it set up last election. What processes go on there? What happens at the Belfair office? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'm gonna, Susie, you want to answer that question? What happens in the Belfair office? Because she was there as our boots on the ground assistant administrator to handle about 30 customers that came in.
I'll take it.
You'll take it?
I love my Susie, and she's not a microphone girl. So we set that up as literally a vote center. People can come in, get registered to vote, update their address, and get a ballot. That's what it was set up for. We didn't do any processing or anything. I mean, all processing is 100% in the processing room. Yeah, it's just a vote center, as if they were going to our second floor location. And it did. Susie had quite a few. We're anticipating, of course, for the August and November election, because we will be implementing, and I mentioned the dates that we would be in Belfair with that vote center open, and then we will do probably 10 days, 7 to 8, what I figure, 10 days in the November election in Belfair, having that vote center open and available. And including the Saturday before Election Day, we will have that open.
So far the feedback's been good. And the one thing that we want to improve for the next election is signage out front to direct people around to the back of the building, because their first inclination is to try to go in through the front door where the sheriff's office is, and that's not always open, so we got to get them steered around to the back of the building.
Yeah, and it is actually the new North Mason precinct for the sheriff's office, so I feel like we have a very good location.
Next question.
just tell us, didn't she just say to us that we can choose, each county can choose its voting method?
I think, Fina, you said each county can choose its voting system.
Yeah, no, not its voting method. The state is vote by mail. So what I'm talking about is the voting system, which would be clear ballot, or so the tabulation system. So every county has, that's a vendor choice. But there's a list of vendors that are there. So clear ballot, Heart, yeah. ES&S is another one. Yeah.
Next question.
You better stay up here.
Okay, this one's kind of a twofold question. Number one is, I understand that the VoteWa system is moving over to Azure on the cloud. So I'm wondering about security with the cloud, if you can speak to that, how we can be assured that our signatures are, I believe, are also uploaded to that, because there's multiple signatures in the database that being collected from Department of Licensing, and then the signatures that may be there from other times. And so how are you cleaning up those signatures, and how secure is moving everything to the cloud with Azure?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So right now, the state is working on now that I work with all these tech people, I'm learning all these new terminology. So right now they're working on what's called a proof of concept. And so we have a really robust, it's called Information Security and Response Division, and this is a new division within the Secretary of State. Honestly, it's long overdue, and they work in the same building as we do. So this is a team of cybersecurity experts, and so they're working on the concept of how to securely move VoteWa into the cloud, and make sure that that's there. So it's not, it hasn't started yet. You know, there's no process on that yet. But in terms of the team that is working on it, I have like incredible confidence in this team, and their entire focus is security. So they're working closely with IT, with our IT division, to make sure that whatever we do is secure.
Actually going to go up in there as well, or how are we going to be protected with our signatures?
Yeah, I mean, the whole system would be moving, as opposed to, so instead of being on the local servers that are located in different places, the whole system, and that would include images. But again, this is an entirely secure, they're focused entirely on security and making sure that that is, however it moves into the cloud, that it's a secure system. I'm not a security expert, so I can't kind of answer those questions very specifically. But I will say that the team that is working on it is, that's their entire focus. You know, we don't have an IT team working on this. We have an information security team working on this.
Thanks, Vina.
Sure.
And if you could get with Kylie on that and come back, that would be fantastic, because she's the one who leads that information security team, right? Kylie?
Yes,
Sable.
Kylie,
Yeah.
sorry. I was thinking Kaylee. I was like, Kaylee?
Randy.
This is kind of related. Maybe it would be useful if you described how locally what happens is the tabulations are done by a machine. And like Steve said, there's a sample process to try to determine, is there a high probability that the machine is doing it right? Personally, I think apparently the state does not allow a complete sample. You can only sample a portion of it, which I don't personally get, but whatever. But so in effect, it's a black box. But maybe it'd be useful to, because there's concerns about these black box machines being invaded from the internet. And if you could, it'd be useful maybe if you describe what steps you're taking to make sure that kind of invasion can't happen.
I want to make sure I understand the question. You're talking about, if I heard you right, invasion of the machine.
Well, okay. can the machine be hacked? That's a concern. Because can people hack into the machine that tabulates the ballots and somehow alter it or change what was really happened? But what are your steps to make sure something like that can't happen?
So I'm not an expert, right? But we're doing everything that we can think of to protect our machines against any physical intrusion or wireless intrusion, and we're going to keep working on that step by step as time goes on. Haven't seen any evidence of any kind of trouble like that. Secretary of State recommended some wireless monitoring equipment that we've obtained and we're starting to put in place, so we'll be able to keep some or get some visibility on what wireless sources there are in proximity of the election system. But so far we haven't seen anything that would cause concern or alarm. So
You're doing things like, isn't the room, don't you surround it with?
yeah, we put a tinfoil hat on the room with Faraday fabric, but it's not perfect because we've got windows and doors, and so we want to just keep working on whatever we can do to improve the security and improve the protection.
Like, you put a memory drive into the black box and put it then send out the results.
Right.
But then when ballots come in later, you don't put in the same memory drive. You put in a fresh one, right, to make sure there's no.
I'm going to let Marie answer that, but I will say that we've started the practice of printing out our tabulated results before we put the thumb drive in the machine and upload results to VoteWA. But do we use a new drive with every update to the election, or do we use the same thumb drive?
Once a thumb drive is inserted into that system, it's never put back in.
Okay. Karen, you had a question.
During the printing, that each piece that goes into the envelope has a code and it matches with the envelope. But I thought there was no way to once the ballot was separated from the envelope, that it could be brought back.
That tab on the top that gets tore off, there's a little code on there that's what that is, to ensure that the voter gets the right ballot, and then that tab is removed, and then we do shuffle them before they are, after they're opened.
So I have it on our website, and I'll send you a copy of it, but in some of my early visits to K&H, I was asking him questions about, what's this barcode? What's that thing? What's this thing? What's that? And so they gave me item by item explanations of what the barcodes were, what they did, what their function was. And so I've got that captured in a presentation. It's on the elections website, but I'll send you a copy. But it all made really good sense, and it dispelled a lot of, raging conspiracy theories about what those little symbols meant and everything, because it's part of their production system. It's what allows them, that 2D barcode is what allows them to track each individual ballot for each individual voter step by step by step through the process. And that's the part that you tear off at the top. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next question. You want to, did I answer that one good? Yeah.
It just left my brain. So everything from the machine in one day is put onto a memory stick, okay? At the end of each day during the whole ballot process, that's correct? No.
All of the scanner scans each ballot as we put them in there. The images are stored on our server, which is hardwired from the server to the computer that we access to the scanners. So everything is stored in there, and then at 8 p.m. election night, all the data that's stored in there, once we trigger it to pull the results, then I put a brand new thumb drive that is provided from the Secretary of State that they're saying is clean and secure. Put that in there, pull the PDF, store the PDF, and then I put the thumb drive in.
So there's only one thumb drive involved in the entire election?
No. When the next day, so I process 8 p.m. election night, pull results. The next day, we process a whole bunch more. I get a brand new thumb drive that has a seal wrapped around it that has never been used. Put it in the machine, get the results, and then, yeah, everything.
That was my question.
Yeah.
So for every single day that you receive and process ballots, there is a thumb drive,
A brand new one.
a brand new one that is
Yep.
accounting. And then those are, I assume,
That
locked
comes from the
locked in a
Secretary of
safe?
State's office. I would never, there's no other thumb drives can go in that
Right,
machine.
properly formatted, I assume, right. And you receive a batch of those then?
Yes. And they
Okay.
all have little, like, once you peel off the seal, it says void, void, void
Okay.
around every single one of them
And then
individually.
those are secured in the election office?
They are in that processing room, or in that storage room where the equipment is.
Locked and secured until,
What was that?
locked and secured then until the final night at 8 p.m.?
Everything in that room is locked and sealed all year long.
Okay. Well, my question is we've got multiple thumb drives now from every day of ballot processing.
Mm-hmm.
At 10 minutes after 8, the state of Washington, the Secretary of State's office knows the results or
Because
has
I-
a pretty good idea. So are you spending those 10 minutes then plugging those
Yeah, I
thumb
have to
drives,
take that brand new thumb
everyone
drive at
in
8
and-
p.m. I process, I hit, I enable the system to count, to do the tabulation, put a brand new thumb drive in there. I have to pull the data out of there, and then I go take that thumb drive to my PC, to my computer that is not on the internet. I have to have the internet so that I can upload those results to the Secretary of State's website.
But it,
Yeah,
ag-
one thumb drive. Every day, every time that I have to pull results out of there, it is a brand new thumb drive that I take to the vote loss system and upload those results.
and again, we've started the practice before any thumb drive is inserted into the machine. The tabulated results are printed. They're in my hand, Marie's hand, Susie's hand, and anybody else who's there to observe. And then she does the upload to VoteWa, and then we have the physical paper to confirm that those numbers match exactly what's
Before the
reported.
thumb drive is put
Yep.
into the computer. And
So that
only one.
we can be sure that what's reported in VoteWa matches exactly what's on the paper. Laura Lynn, did you have another question?
Does VoteWa every night during the election process, before election night, do they get the votes as well? Or I thought they just got who voted and that type of information?
So the difference between VoteWa and the tabulation system, so the VoteWa system is where all the registered voters are, where their ballot ID is stored, where we say their ballot was received, accepted or rejected. And then if it's accepted, of course, then it gets opened and it gets scanned. And then when we do tabulation, that's when we pull the results for all the ballots that were accepted up to that point. And then, of course, the one thumb drive that goes over to put the results into the VoteWa system so that everything for the state recording or reportings and all of the stuff online for the results is all together. No thumb drive is ever put in there other than when I'm loading. So I build the election, but election night results is one thumb drive per time I pull it. If I have to pull data out of there, like for the reports that Steve does for his analytic stuff, that's his area of expertise. I use one thumb drive, brand new, put it in, pull those reports for him. He gets the thumb drive, and it never goes back in there ever again.
Next question. Over to you, Randy. Here we go.
So the information you send from the thumb drive to VoteWa are the total tabulations, not the actual specific individual data from individual voters. Is that-
No, it's a cumulative results. That's all it is.
Okay. And just to be clear, the reason you do a fresh thumb drive every day, a different fresh one, is the prior day you took it out and you hooked it in, and now that's been exposed to the internet, which theoretically is in danger of contamination. So you don't want to put
So-
that, that's the reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you don't want
Yes.
to, you don't want to put that same thumb drive back in. That's why you have to put in a fresh one every day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great question. Next question. Rick.
So you've been the auditor for how long now?
Almost a year and a half.
So what do you see as the goal for you to improve what we already have? Is there a thing coming down the pike where you're adding some improvements that we don't know about yet? Your priorities?
We've gotten so much done in a year and a half. When I first came on board, Marie had a pretty long list of things that she wanted to do. And Susie had a couple things, and Kaylee had a few things. I think we've pretty much accomplished all of them, except for
A
obtaining
brand
the new
new,
facility.
nice facility where it's all in one.
So going forward, if there's ways for me to make things more transparent, I want to keep doing that. If there are things that we can do to continue to enhance the security of our voting machines, I want to do that. And to the degree that we can get more information out to the public and get more people involved in the process, whether they're observers or part-time help, I want to do that. The more eyes, the more people involved, I think the better the system. Hopefully that answered your question.
I would love to have a facility where I had more observers than workers.
And we're getting there. We've accommodated, I think, 7 observers now at one time, so we're getting there.
Sorry. Marie, I've got a good question for you, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, or maybe FINA does. The RCW 29A 40-110 states that the processing of the incoming ballots, that the tabulation of the ballots doesn't occur till after 8 p.m., but ClearVote actually has a feature that allows you to actually access and turn that feature on. It's actually still tabulating in the background that you can't see. And so ClearVote 2.1 functionality description 3.4 says that in the ClearCount system, activating the ballot counting device takes place when the scanner operator scans the first batch of ballots, starting with its target card. As cards are scanned on a scan station, the tabulator instance counts and records the votes. But that means that it's actually turned on in that moment that when you go to that 8 o'clock time period. It's actually running in the background. Do you know much about that?
So I'm not a technical person, but I can tell you if I go in there and try to pull a report to pull the results, it will absolutely not give me a darn thing. As soon as I enable it and have to put in my secret code, it will give me the results. It's always stored, it pulls the images, it stores them, it reads them and if you've ever observed when we do the adjudication. So adjudication is basically where we have to correct a vote, like what I talked about where they fill in the bubble and they put in a line. The system knows, hey, that's a vote. I'm counting this as a vote. So it knows what's being voted by all means. The tabulation, actually calculating, can't happen until it's enabled. Which I have, there has to be, we have to put in our password. We have there's only 2 people that have access to that.
So Jen, you're talking about the display vote totals function? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Does that RCW need to be fine-tuned to reflect that more accurately?
FINA.
I do see the technicality that you're talking about, and there is the reality of technology moving, and RCW is written by legislators, so that's not necessarily kind of exactly where they are. We have control as the Secretary of State's office to, with WAC, to fine tune and clarify RCWs if it's not clear, or there are things that have come up that often, legislators will come out with a great idea, and we have 90 days to implement it across the state, and so that's a lot of what we use WAC for. So yes, I do understand what you're talking about. Unfortunately, I don't have control over RCWs. That would be a legislative, piece. When Clear Ballot was certified by the state, the security protocols put into place were sufficient for us to certify that as, meeting the Secretary of State's standard for a system in Washington State. That, it's not being enabled. The display vote totals require this. It requires, a code. There's control in the code. Not everybody has it. The extra help don't have it. Anybody who scans on it doesn't have it. Those security measures, so that in terms of tabulation, it is produced on election night when that's brought over to the system.
But Clear Ballot does have access to that original code. Clear Ballot has a code as well. It goes back, they have their own code too. I have no doubt about the security of our elections at the local level, but knowing that all electronics are vulnerable to being hacked, and we've seen that from whether it's Democrat, Republican, whatever, everyone has acknowledged that that ability exists. So my question is, if we do have those variances between legislative law versus machines that have already enabled this procedure, even though we know that, Marie's not going to be enabling that and looking at that until after 8 o'clock, somebody could technically hack into that system and get the tallies of those numbers since they're already being gathered. So what are we doing to protect that at the state level? And I would ask for the state to look at that and see how you can fine tune that, and then also take those requests back to the legislature and have them fine-tune it with the legislation.
Okay. Yeah, I could follow up on that, and certainly looking at specifically, again, I'm not a tech expert, so in terms of looking back specifically at the certification of Clear Ballot, there is a yes, so, you have election administrators, and so, but it's all people also, so in terms of that. So the law is there that says that you can't do that, you can't tabulate before that. But even, say a system that doesn't anyway have that kind of background information, and there's a different way that information is done, certainly you're still counting on the people that you trust in the local office to follow the law. And that's the law. The law is, the RCW says we don't tabulate till 8 o'clock last night. And that's whether it's a Clear Ballot system or a system that does it slightly differently. But you're still, you're counting on the local officials to do it following the law.
And I'm trying to Clear Ballot too, who also has access to that code.
Yeah, so Clear Ballot, again, these are not connected to the internet, so how Clear Ballot could get there, that is part of, and again, you can observe, and I encourage you, a lot of people, I remember people coming in and talking to me and sitting down and wanting to know, I hear dogs vote, I hear this vote, like on and on and on, and I would sort of take them through all the kind of reasons they don't, and I would certainly hear from them, okay, I don't think this is happening in Mason County. I trust you. But it's happening everywhere else in Washington. I would hear that. So I really encourage you, Mason County is not the only one that you can go and observe. Just because you're Mason County voters, every county in the state is as transparent and secure as Mason County. And now that I'm at the state, I really see it. And that's part of what we work with. We work that with certification and training, with the training of election administrators, with the reviews when we go into the offices and we say, wow, what would be even better if you did this, whatever. Now we've brought on a cybersecurity team, which has, greatly increased that. And every step that we take is a step forward. So I would also really encourage everyone to visit other offices. You can go visit Thurston County, Grays Harbor, ones that aren't even that far. You can also see, King County is insane how big it is because it's 1/3 of all voters in Washington State are in King County. I would really encourage you because it's not only here that is doing a great job for you, it's the whole state.
Thanks, Feeny. And the one thing I wanted to add, we post our web activity log and our elections log on the elections website. So you can go and you can see the history through the election of when different people log on and what they do. And you can see when vote total display is activated, right? And it's after 8 p.m. on election night. Okay, a couple more hands. I'm gonna swing over to Laura Lee, then head over to Randy.
It's actually a statement. When Fina left, we were, oh no. And because you were always so welcoming and transparent. And I want to tell you, you can see the kind of questions we hit Marie and Susie with all the time. And I am probably one of the worst. And I have been respected and dealt with very transparently. So you did a good job of handing over the gavel. Thank you.
Very happy that, yeah, like I said, I know it was obviously very warm in my heart. You don't spend thank you. You don't spend, 15 years working at a place, especially elections, without it being deep in your heart and the work. And so I was obviously very confident in Susie and Marie in taking over, and I have been more than impressed with the work that they've done. Yeah.
Except for, I think I called you Laura Lee instead of Laura Lynn. Sorry about that. Okay. I know who you are. Okay, Randy, back to you.
So Steve was at a meeting yesterday I attended with a group. Steve did a fantastic job of answering questions and concerns. As you all know, Steve's very articulate and kind and all that. But one question that was asked was, do you believe the auditor's office should be a partisan position? And I'll let Steve answer that if he wants, what his answer was. But kind of an interesting thing, very interesting to me was, if I understand it right, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that Steve really has two roles. One is as the administrator, and he must follow the law when administering the process of the election. He may not agree with what the law says, but he must follow it. His personal beliefs are irrelevant in that role. But he does have another role he mentioned, which is he's also auditor as influencer. And he does talk to legislators and others who are the decision makers, who do make the rules. And at that he does have the opportunity to weigh in and influence. But as far as being the administrator, the other role, he follows the law. Whether or not he doesn't agree with that the law may not be optimum. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks for that, Randy. Appreciate that. And to answer the question, yes, in Mason County, the auditor's office is a partisan position. Not all counties that way. Charter counties, in some cases, have made it nonpartisan. Personally, as I shared yesterday with the League of Women's Voters, I like partisan offices because I think it helps people understand not just the administrative level, but what's this person really all about? What's their worldview? What are their beliefs? What are their principles? What's their platform, right? And so I think it makes for a better process, a better election, and in some ways helps people hold elected officials accountable based on what they say. Marilyn, I'm going to go to you. Hi, Marilyn.
So as I understand it, the Republican platform is calling for voting in person on Election Day. So you support that?
Do I support voting in person on Election Day? Well, the high-level answer is that's not the law right now. And so we're always going to follow the law. There's a lot of, and the other high-level answer is I want to do what the people of Mason County want to do. And if the legislature ever started to go to work on a same-day voting in person type scenario, the way we used to conduct elections, I'd be okay with that. I think there's, and some of us are old enough to remember how those elections worked, and they weren't perfect, right? Every system has its upsides and downsides. But the thing that I liked about it was being there in person, being there with other members of my community. It seemed like it held people closer together as a community. And then you go home and turn on the TV and cook up a bowl of popcorn and watch for the results that night. So that's how I remember it used to be. But again, I'm going to follow the law, and I'm going to do what the people of our county want to do. Question? Oh, back to Rick.
We were talking about the tabulation with the RCW. I'm from law enforcement, so is there a punishment for somebody that's violating that rule? Because to me, if it's a felony to do it, I mean...
For
there has to be-
violating which law or which rule, Rick?
Like, for instance, if Marie entered her code in and did a tabulation and got the vote and what it really was before she was supposed to, is there a punishment in that RCW which has already answered those questions?
I don't remember what I know it's against the law to turn vote totals on before 8 p.m. on election night. I don't recall what the penalty is.
So it is a crime.
It would be a violation of the law.
I'm good with that.
Do you know, Fina?
I don't think it's explicitly called out as a type of misdemeanor or, felony. But election processes is all law. Almost everything that is happening in the election process is either an RCW or a WAC. So everything that they're doing is, and if there are things that are not going on, that's why the auditor's office is represented by an elected official. That's part of the, so if there are things that are going on that are not proper in an auditor's office, the elected official that's in charge of that has to answer to the voters. And that's true for everyone. I mean, that's why we have, the Secretary of State has to answer. He has a boss. It's the voters in terms of if there's issues going on with the election system and rules aren't being followed properly.
Other questions? Going once. Going twice? Okay, going 3 times. Thank you all for being here today. We're going to call it a wrap. Anything that you would like to say in conclusion there, Marie?
I just encourage everybody that wants to really see firsthand, become an observer. Come see, and you don't have to be affiliated with a party to be an observer. That is, you can be just an individual. If somebody was unable to make it to the observer training, I am more than accommodating with time constraints, but I will do what I can to help someone come in and actually see the process.
So come on down, see what you can see. We'll put you to work. We'll have a good time. And again, I want to thank our guests for coming all the way down from Everett today. Jennifer and Dave and Fina, thank you for coming all the way over from Olympia today. We're really
Back
appreciate
home.
it. And thank you all for taking time out of this beautiful May day to be here. Thanks.